The morning sun rose slowly over Marembo, spreading its golden light across the quiet village like a warm blessing. The fields surrounding the village shimmered as if coated in honey, and a soft breeze carried the scent of fresh soil and growing crops. It was the kind of morning the elders often called the smile of the ancestors. Marembo lay still, shaped by its clay homes and tin roofs that caught the sun's glow. Each house stood like a memory, built by hands that had long returned to the earth, yet continued to guide the living. Children's tiny footprints mixed with the deep prints of cattle, weaving a story across the dusty roads. Even the birds seemed to understand the sacred silence of dawn, singing only soft melodies. Old Mama Naki, one of the village's storytellers, stepped out of her hut and stretched her arms to the sky. She whispered, "The ancestors are awake." Her voice carried the calm wisdom of someone who had lived long enough to see both peace and storms. As she walked to the well, she passed young men sweeping their compounds. The sound of their brooms brushing earth echoed through the village like a heartbeat. A few women already sat outside, peeling cassava and watching the sunrise with quiet gratitude. Though the village looked peaceful, it stood at a crossroads. Marembo held tightly to tradition. The elders still gathered under the big fig tree to settle disputes. Young people respected marriage arrangements decided by families. Stories of ancestors were told with pride and care. Yet change was creeping in, slow but relentless. At the far end of the village, a boy named Lul rushed past carrying a small smartphone, its cracked screen glowing. Mama Naki stopped him gently. "Where are you running to so early, child?" Lul grinned, holding up the device. "Mama Naki, I want to catch network before the sun gets too strong. My friend from the city sent a message." She shook her head, smiling but concerned. These little machines bring news, but they also bring trouble. Be careful, Lul. Do not forget who you are." "Yes, Mama," he said, but his excitement pulled him forward before her words could settle. Nearby, two men mixed clay to patch a wall, arguing quietly. "You see these young ones?" one said. "They dream of city money. They forget that our strength is here." The other man laughed. But you two wanted to run once. Don't pretend." The argument died down as they both looked at the half-built concrete building rising in the center of Marembo, a new shop owned by a village man who had returned with city savings. It stood tall and sharp, unlike the soft curves of clay huts around it. To the elders, it was a symbol of progress and danger at the same time. As the sun climbed higher, Marembo slowly came to life. The goats bleated, women laughed as they fetched water, and the smell of breakfast fires spread through the air. But beneath the beauty and warmth, a quiet tension lay hidden, like a drum waiting for a hand to strike it. Mama Naki paused again and looked across the fields. "Times are changing," she murmured. "But the ancestors still watch. They always watch." Her words hung in the air, a gentle reminder that even in a village touched by modern dreams, the old spirits walked quietly among them, waiting to shape the fate of those who dared to forget their roots. The sun continued to rise, painting Marembo in gold, signaling both peace and the beginning of a story woven with trials, choices, and hidden destinies. The dusty paths of Marembo wound through the village like old stories carved into the earth. Each step taken on those roads carried the weight of generations. In the early morning, as the golden light pushed away the shadows, the footprints on the ground told their own quiet tale. Some prints were deep, the kind left by elders whose feet had walked these same routes for over half a century. Others were tiny, dancing marks from children chasing each other with laughter loud enough to wake sleeping goats. And then there were the long, tired footprints of travelers passing through, carrying secrets from faraway lands. Together, these marks blended into one long pattern, showing how everyone in Marembo shared the same ground, the same sun, and often the same struggles. Old Baba Kinta walked slowly down the path, leaning on his carved walking stick. The stick was shaped like a serpent, a symbol of wisdom in many tales. As he walked, he studied the footprints beneath him and smiled softly. These paths remember more than we do, he whispered to himself. They hear our joys, and they hear our foolishness. A young girl named Omoni came rushing from behind, balancing a basket of cassava on her head. When she saw Baba Kintu, she slowed her hurried steps. "Good morning, Baba," she greeted him gently. He nodded, leaning a bit heavier on his stick. "Omoni, child of grace, you walk with speed. Are you running from something or running to something?" She laughed a little. "Just running to finish work before the sun grows too hot." Baba Kintu looked ahead at the dusty road stretched before them. "Ah, the young always hurry. But remember, these paths hold stories of those who rushed and those who waited." Omoni nodded respectfully, though she didn't fully understand his meaning. She continued forward, her sandals raising small clouds of dust behind her. At the next turn, two women whispered to each other as they made their way to the well. "I heard the elders will meet again today," one said. "Yes," the other replied, lowering her voice. "Another girl will be told who she must marry." The first woman clicked her tongue. These paths carry too many tears from such decisions. Their words floated along the road and mixed with the morning air. It was the kind of conversation that always returned, like a stubborn echo that never died. A group of children ran past them, their bare feet thumping against the earth. One boy stumbled and laughed as he picked himself up again. "Careful," an older girl called out. "These paths are older than your grandfather's grandfather. Treat them well." The boy grinned. "But the road is soft. It likes my feet." His innocence made the women smile, but deep inside, they knew the road was only soft now. When life's troubles arrived, it could become as hard as stone. As the sun continued to rise, the prints on the path grew clearer. Travelers from the town walked in with dusty boots, carrying news and goods. Some greeted the villagers warmly, while others hurried past with their eyes fixed on the new concrete building standing tall at the center. Even the footprints of these outsiders added to the story, though they would fade quickly. A gentle wind blew through the village, lifting a trail of dust that twisted in the air like a small spirit dancing. Baba Kintu stopped and watched it carefully. "Even the wind remembers," he muttered. "Nothing passes here without leaving a mark." He turned toward the direction Omoni had gone. "Child," he whispered, though she was far ahead. "Meh. Your steps lead you to truth, not trouble." The dusty road stretched on, alive with the movement of feet from every age and every life. And though the village faced the pull of modern times, phones buzzing, buildings rising, money whispering its temptations, the ancient paths still held the stories of the people. They reminded everyone that no matter how far they traveled, they all shared the same ground, the same destiny, and the same lessons waiting ahead. The day moved on, and the paths remained, silent watchers of the past, present, and the future that was about to unfold. The clay houses of Marembo stood quietly under the warm morning sun, each one shaped with the careful hands of generations long gone. Their walls were smooth, the color of deep earth, holding the warmth of the land like a mother holding her child. Tin roofs glimmered softly, catching the light as if the ancestors themselves brushed them with gold. In this village, a home was not just a building. It was a story, a memory, a prayer. Old Mama Rithis stepped outside her hut, her back bent, but her spirit strong. She touched the clay wall gently, as if greeting an old friend. "This house has seen more seasons than I have," she murmured, smiling at the memories painted unseen on the walls. "It has heard laughter, it has heard tears, and it still stands." Her granddaughter, little Kinna, skipped out behind her. "Grandmother, do clay houses really have ears?" Mama Ritha chuckled softly. "Maybe not ears like ours. But they remember, child. They carry the stories of those who built them." Kinna looked around the village. Every house looked different, some tall, some small, some painted with faded colors, others decorated with hand-carved symbols meant to protect the family inside. "Whose stories do they remember?" she asked. "All of us," Mama Ritha replied. "Every family in Marembo carries the strength of their forefathers. And these walls keep that strength close." A few steps away, a group of men repaired the wall of another home. The oldest among them, Juma, paused to wipe sweat from his forehead. "My father shaped this house with his own hands," he said proudly. "He mixed clay with water from the river and molded every brick. When I touch this wall, I feel him standing with me." The younger men nodded quietly. One of them, barely 20, asked, "Juma, why don't we just build with cement like the new shops in town?" Juma leaned on his hoe, his expression thoughtful. "Cement is strong, yes. But clay carries spirit. It connects us to the land and to each other. When a clay house cracks, the whole village helps to repair it. That is unity. That is Marembo." His words carried across the air, reaching the ears of an elderly woman named Mama Kesai, who sat weaving a mat on her doorstep. "These houses bind us," she added with a smile. "They teach us humility. They remind us that we all depend on one another." Even the children sensed the magic of the village homes. They ran around them barefoot, tracing the carvings on the walls, whispering stories they had heard from their elders. One boy pointed at a clay design shaped like a bird. "My mother said this bird watches over us," he announced proudly. "And my father said the sun's symbol keeps away bad spirits," another child added. But not everyone admired the old traditions. At the edge of the village, a young woman named Sifa stood staring at a newly built concrete house towering over the clay homes. She sighed. "Maybe these old walls hold memories, but memories don't feed hungry bellies. Maybe it's time we moved on." Her friend Omoni, passing by with a basket of maize, paused. "Sifa, new houses may be strong, but they cannot replace the heart of this village. Our homes are part of our story." Sifa looked away, her eyes filled with both desire and fear. Maybe our story needs to change." The wind blew softly through Marembo, stirring red dust across the paths and brushing against the clay walls. It carried with it whispers of the past and hints of the future. The houses stood silent, but their silence had power. They were witnesses to joy and sorrow, to unity and conflict, to dreams and disappointments. Mama Ritha placed her hand around Kinna's shoulders. "Remember this, child," she said. "A house made of clay may crumble with time, but the love inside it, that is what keeps a family standing." Kinna nodded, her small eyes shining with understanding. The sun climbed higher, lighting up every home in Marembo. Old, new, strong, and cracked. And though change was creeping into the village, the clay houses held firm, waiting to see who would honor their stories and who would abandon them. It was the kind of silent question that only time and fate could answer. In the heart of the land where the sun painted the earth in shades of gold, the village of Marembo lay quietly between rolling fields and twisted dust roads. The morning breeze carried the smell of wet clay, roasted maize, and the soft hum of people preparing for another day. Children chased chickens, goats chewed lazily near the huts, and women tied bright cloths around their waists as they swept their yards. Marembo was old, older than any story the youngest child had ever heard. Its foundations were built on respect for the land, for the ancestors, and most of all, for the elders who guarded the ways of the past. Their clay homes stood beside newer concrete structures, a reminder that the world was changing, whether the village welcomed it or not. Elder Ntwali, whose walking stick was carved with symbols of wisdom, stood beneath the wide Mariela tree at the village center. His voice carried the weight of many seasons. "Change is walking into our village like a traveler who does not knock," he murmured, watching a group of youths scroll through their phones instead of greeting the morning. Beside him, Elder Mwana sighed deeply. "Our children chase shiny things, wealth, fame, fast lives. They forget that the ancestors walk with us only when we remember them." A gathering began to form around the elders. Men returned from checking their farms, women paused their chores, and the young ones, even the stubborn ones, came to listen. In Marembo, when the elders spoke, even the wind became quiet. Elder Imani, the only woman in the council, raised her hand. Her voice was calm yet firm, like a river that never stopped flowing. "Our village stands at a crossroad," she said. "Old ways hold us steady, but new ways pull us forward. We must choose what we keep and what we let go. From the crowd, a young man named Baraka stepped forward, his jaw tight, his clothes modern and crisp. But Mama Imani, he said, how long will we follow traditions that no longer fit the world? Phones help us learn. New buildings bring business. Why must the elders decide everything, even who we marry? A wave of murmurs swept through the villagers. Some nodded with Baraka. Others shook their heads. Elder Ntwali leaned heavily on his stick, his eyes sharp despite his age. You speak with a heart that burns like the midday sun, he said. But fire, if not guided, can burn the home of the one who lights it. Baraka lowered his gaze, but his voice remained steady. Still, we must move forward. The world outside Marembo is running. If we keep walking slowly, we will be left behind. Elder Mwana took a long breath. The world outside runs, yes. But running without direction is like chasing wind. You feel fast, yet you reach nowhere. The villagers fell silent. Even the goats, near the fence dotted with rusted tin, seemed to pause. Then Elder Imani stepped closer to Baraka and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. My son, listen. We do not reject change, but we must guide it. The way a shepherd guides a stubborn goat, so it does not fall into a ditch. We do not hold on to old ways because they are old. We hold them because they protect us. She lifted her face to the gathering. This is why the council exists. We settle disputes, we speak with the ancestors, and we keep the roots strong so the tree does not fall. Baraka's mother, Ao, stepped forward from the crowd, worry lining her face. My child, she whispered, remember that a tree without roots is easily blown away. Baraka looked around at the villagers, at the clay houses standing proudly, at the elders whose words shaped destinies, at the land that carried the stories of generations. His voice softened. I hear you all, he said. But I also hope you hear us, the youth. We want to honor our past, but we also want a future that belongs to us. The elders exchanged slow, meaningful glances. Elder Ntwali nodded. And that, Baraka, is why today the council must open its ears wider. If the river finds a new path, the wise man does not try to force it back. He watches where it flows and learns from it. A small smile formed on Elder Imani's lips. Let this be the beginning, she said. A new season where elders and youth walk together. Not one pulling the other, but both moving as one. The villagers murmured in agreement, the air shifting with a new kind of energy, one of hope yet still lined with the tension of what was to come. For in Marembo, change had arrived, and the Council of Elders would soon face tests greater than any before. And so the story moved forward, like a drumbeat echoing through the golden fields. The sun rose slowly over Marembo, stretching long fingers of orange light across the golden fields. Dew clung to the tall grass like tiny spirits whispering blessings for a new day. The dusty roads were already alive with footsteps, soft greetings, and the low hum of morning chores. Marembo was a village built on memory. Every clay wall, every tin roof, every tree that stood at the edge of the fields carried stories of those who came before. The people walked with quiet pride, believing their strength came from honoring the footsteps of their ancestors. For them, tradition was not old. It was a rope tied to their hearts, guiding them through life's storms. That morning, the elders gathered beneath the great Mariala tree, its branches wide like the arms of an ancient guardian. Elder Ntwali tapped his carved walking stick on the ground 3 times, calling the villagers closer. Come, children of Marembo, he said, his voice rough but steady. Today we speak of what binds us together, what has kept our families strong. The villagers formed a circle, young, old, and those caught between worlds. Some stood in modern clothes, holding phones. Others wore bright wrappers and carried baskets woven with care. They all leaned forward. Elder Mwana cleared his throat. In Marembo, a marriage is not a simple joining of 2 people. It is a sacred pact woven with the threads of lineage, respect, and duty. A murmur of agreement traveled through the crowd. He continued, when a man takes a wife, he does not only marry her. He marries her ancestors, her family, her story, and she becomes part of his. This is why we, the elders, must guide these unions. We see beyond love. We see destiny. A group of young villagers exchanged glances. A few shifted uneasily. Baraka, standing at the back, folded his arms. His eyes burned with quiet frustration. The new concrete buildings behind him shimmered in the sun, reminding him of the world he longed to embrace. Elder Imani stepped forward, her voice soft but carrying the authority of a lioness. There are names that walk with us long after we leave this earth. Our families carry blessings or curses, depending on the unions we form. If two lineages clash, their children may carry the burden. She looked at the youths and added gently, "That is why arranged marriages are not chains. They are shields." Ao, an older mother with tired eyes, nodded slowly. "When I married into my husband's home, it was arranged by the elders. I did not know him well, but the ancestors blessed our path. We built a home, raised children, and today I stand proud." One of the younger girls, Lisha, raised her hand timidly. "But Mama's Imani, what if two people love each other deeply? What if their hearts choose before the elders do?" The villagers stirred. Some shook their heads. Others leaned closer, curious to hear the answer. Elder Ntwali smiled sadly. "Love is a river, child. It flows freely, and sometimes it floods. But duty is a well. It does not run dry when storms come. Love is precious, but love alone cannot carry a family." He lifted his stick and pointed at the ground. "Marriage is not only for pleasure. It is for peace between families. It is to keep balance in the village. If one union breaks the harmony of many, then it is no union at all." Baraka stepped forward now, unable to stay silent. "But Babandwali, the world outside is changing. People choose for themselves. They learn, they grow, they decide their future. Why must we still follow rules written before we were born?" Imani's eyes softened. "Because the world outside moves fast, my son. Too fast. But speed does not mean wisdom. A bird that flies too quickly may not see the hunter waiting ahead." A long silence followed. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Elder Mwana spoke again. "Arranged marriages in Marembo are guided by more than elders. They are guided by spirits older than memory. We do not force two souls to join. We simply choose the path with fewer thorns." The villagers nodded slowly, some still troubled, others reassured. Children clung to their mothers, sensing the tension, though they did not understand it. Baraka lowered his gaze, torn between respect for tradition and the beating of his own heart. Something inside him whispered that the path ahead would not be easy. Elder Imani touched his arm gently. "You have a strong spirit. But remember, every decision in this village affects more than one person. Before a seed becomes a tree, it must learn the patience of soil." Her words hung in the air like a quiet warning. As the elders stepped back, signaling the end of the gathering, the villagers slowly dispersed. Some walked away deep in thought. Others whispered about children, marriages, and futures unspoken. But one thing was clear. The old ways were standing firm, and the new ways were pushing hard. The village of Marembo was standing at the edge of a storm, one woven from tradition, desire, and the choices that shape generations. Morning light spilled across the village of Marembo, touching everything with a soft golden glow. The clay houses stood proudly as they always had, their walls painted by the hands of ancestors. But now, hidden among them, new shapes were rising. Smooth concrete walls, sharp edges, and metal roofs that shone too brightly under the sun. The dusty road that once felt like the heartbeat of tradition was changing. Footprints of elders and children still marked the ground, but new patterns appeared. Shoe marks from city traders, tire lines from motorcycles, and the hurried steps of those chasing something unseen. Ebel, an elderly woman whose back was curved like an old bow, stood outside her clay hut. She watched a group of young men walk past, their jeans tight, shirts branded with names she couldn't pronounce. One of them carried a shiny phone, swiping the screen with confidence. She shook her head slowly. Times are moving like a river in flood. The young men greeted her politely. Good morning, Mama Ebel. She nodded, but her eyes lingered on their modern clothes. A young girl named Leisha came running down the road, her school uniform crisp and clean. She passed by a freshly built concrete house with tall windows and a metal gate. She slowed down, staring at it with mixed feelings, admiration and fear. Her friend Zuri joined her. My father says soon all houses will look like this. No more clay. Leisha frowned. But the clay houses feel warm, like they are alive. Zuri sighed. People want what the city has. They want to look successful. From behind them, Ao, an older mother, spoke gently. A tree that forgets its roots will fall, my children. The girls exchanged nervous glances. Across the village center, Baraka stepped out of his home wearing a new white shirt from the city market. He carried a school bag, even though he was no longer a student. His father had saved for months to buy that shirt, hoping it would help Baraka look modern enough to find new opportunities. As Baraka walked, some villagers admired him, while others whispered, "See how he walks like someone from Lusaka. He thinks the old ways are too slow." Nearby, Elder Mwana noticed the shift in movement, the new ambitions rising in the air. He stroked his long gray beard thoughtfully. These changes, he murmured to Elder Imani, they arrive like soft footsteps, but they shake the ground like thunder. Imani nodded. Children want new dreams, but dreams without wisdom can burn a village. As they spoke, more signs of change revealed themselves. A boy sat under a tree, earphones plugged in, nodding to music no one else could hear. A mason stacked bricks for another concrete house, the tapping echoing across the village like a stubborn reminder of the world outside. A group of young women posed for pictures with their phones, trying to capture angles their elders didn't understand. Yet, woven between all these signs, the sound of tradition still breathed. An old woman pounding yam, children sweeping the compound, a rooster crowing, as if defending the old ways. Baraka stopped near the elders. Baba Mwana, is it wrong to want a better life? Should we always walk the path our ancestors walked? Mwana looked at him for a long moment. My son, wanting a better life is never wrong. But a man who runs too fast may miss the fork in the road. Baraka lowered his gaze, unsure whether he was being warned or guided. Imani added softly, the world is changing. But every change carries a shadow. A man must choose whether the shadow falls behind him or on his own home. Baraka swallowed hard. Her words struck him deeper than she knew. The wind blew lightly, carrying dust and whispers, old voices, new voices, all arguing silently in the air. Marembo stood between two worlds, neither letting go nor fully holding on. As the sun climbed higher, the villagers went about their day, each carrying their own battle between tradition and change. But one truth settled quietly over the village. The ancient ways were no longer alone. New dreams were knocking, softly at first, yet strong enough to change the fate of families. And soon, one family would feel that change more than anyone else. The wind moved softly through the golden fields of Marembo as the sun began its slow rise. The village woke like an old drumbeat, steady, familiar, and filled with the voices of ancestors. Yet beneath the morning calm, a quiet struggle lived in the hearts of the young. Baraka walked along the dusty road with a school certificate tucked under his arm. His face held pride, but also fear of disappointing his father, who wanted him to stay in the village and follow the old path. As he reached the central well, he saw his childhood friend Leisha carrying a water pot. Her books were tied with a faded cloth, one corner sticking out like a stubborn dream. Baraka smiled gently. You're studying again this early? Leisha sighed, adjusting the pot on her hip. If I don't study now, when will I? My mother says education fills the stomach slower than marriage, but I want more than what she sees for me. Baraka chuckled softly. Leisha, you always wanted to touch the sky. She looked away, her voice trembling. Is it wrong to want a life bigger than these clay walls? Before he could answer, The deep voice of Elder Mwana echoed behind them. Future. A man must build a home before he grows old. Baraka felt the words cut deeper than the elder intended. Baba Mwana, he replied gently, what if my future is not here? What if my path leads beyond these fields? The elder's expression tightened. The soil that raised you still has work for you. Baraka said nothing. The conflict inside him grew heavier, like a stone sitting on his chest. A short distance away, Zuri, another young villager, practiced typing on a cheap second-hand laptop. The screen flickered, but her eyes lit up with hope. Her mother approached, hands on her waist. Zuri, enough of that device. You will not find a husband by pressing buttons all day. Zuri closed the laptop slowly, pain crossing her face. Mama, I'm not trying to find a husband. I'm trying to find a future. Her mother clicked her tongue loudly. Your future is here, with your people. Why do you chase smoke in the air? Zuri whispered, because sometimes I feel the world is bigger than Marembo. Nearby, a group of young men argued under the large baobab tree. One said, if I go to the city, maybe I can work in a shop. Another replied, and leave your family? Leave your traditions? My father would beat me back to the village. The eldest among them, Juma, sighed. We are trapped between two drums. One calls us forward, the other calls us back. Their voices carried through the fields, mixing with the sounds of goats and the steady rhythm of pounding yam from distant homes. Later that afternoon, Baraka sat alone behind his house, staring at the horizon. The golden fields looked endless, yet he felt trapped inside them. His father approached quietly, leaning on his walking stick. My son, he began, I know you want to chase your dreams. But our ancestors built this village with their hands. They expect us to carry the same load. Baraka looked up, his eyes sharp with emotion. Baba, must I choose between honoring them and honoring myself? His father hesitated. The world is changing, Baraka, but our hearts must remain steady. A man who forgets where he comes from becomes lost. Baraka swallowed hard. And a man who never leaves may never know what he could become. Silence wrapped around them like a heavy blanket. In a nearby yard, Lisha's mother sat with a group of elders, discussing marriage arrangements. Lisha overheard them from inside the house, her hands trembling as she pressed her forehead against the wall. They want to tie my future to a man I barely know, she whispered to herself. How can I respect tradition when tradition does not respect my dreams? The spirits of the ancestors seemed to watch from the rustling trees, whispering questions without answers. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in red and gold, a soft tension settled over Marembo. The old and the new stood face to face, neither ready to step aside. The young villagers knew they were standing on a bridge between two worlds, and soon, each one of them would be forced to choose a side. The sun rose slowly over Marembo, painting the golden fields with a warm glow that made the village look peaceful from afar. But inside the hearts of the people, the winds of change were already stirring. The red dust of the roads lifted with every footstep, carrying whispers of old traditions and the excitement of new dreams. Marembo had always been a place where elders' words carried the weight of mountains, and where ancestry guided every decision. Here, marriages were arranged long before children learned to walk, and families honored the spirits of those who came before them. But now, the village was caught between two worlds. Children ran past with rusty tin toys, yet secretly wished for shiny ones they saw on phones. Women cooked meals over firewood, while men argued about the new concrete buildings rising in the distance. Even the elders narrowed their eyes at these new creations, unsure if they were blessings or curses. That morning, an old man named Babu Tembo, known for his wisdom and sharp tongue, stood at the village center, leaning on his curved walking stick. He watched two young boys crowd around a cracked smartphone one of them had borrowed from a relative in the town. Look at them, Babu Tembo muttered. The spirits of the ancestors are watching, and these children are busy watching dancing people on tiny screens. A group of women nearby burst into laughter. One of them, Mama Jalea, shook her head and replied, Babu, you know the world is changing. Even goats know how to find new grazing land. Babu Tembo snorted loudly. Goats change land, yes. But goats do not forget where home is. Meanwhile, a young girl named Omoni walked past, balancing a pot of water on her head. She slowed down as she saw a crowd gathered around a man who had just returned from the city. His name was Keto, and he was known for bragging about the outside world. Keto lifted his brand-new smartphone high like it was a sacred object. Look at this, he announced proudly. In the city, people live in tall buildings, eat food from places that shine like stars, and talk to anyone across the world in a blink. The villagers gasped softly. Some in awe, some in envy. Omoni stepped closer, her voice gentle but curious. Keto, is it true people in the city forget about their families? Keto smiled, but it wasn't a soft smile. In the city, you don't have to wait for your fate. You create it. You chase money, success, and respect. No one forces you to marry someone you barely know. His words cut through the crowd like a sharp blade. An elderly woman whispered, "This boy will bring trouble with his tongue." And she was right, because Keto's words stirred emotions buried deep in the villagers. Some felt hope, some felt fear. Others felt jealousy burning quietly in their chests. Suddenly, Babu Tembo struck his walking stick on the ground. Listen, all of you. The world outside may shine like a river in the sun, but not everything that shines is gold. Here in Marembo, our roots hold us strong. Keto lifted his chin. Babu, roots can also trap us. They can keep us from growing. The villagers murmured. A few nodded. Others frowned. Omoni watched the exchange with a heavy heart. She admired the beauty of tradition, yet she felt the pull of modern life like a distant drumbeat. Around her, the village seemed to split into two paths, one old and steady, the other new and tempting. As the sun climbed higher, the atmosphere thickened with unspoken tension. The dust swirled around the people's feet, as if even the earth felt the confusion of the moment. And deep in the shadows of Marembo, the ancestors must have watched too, wondering which path their children would choose. The day continued, but nothing felt the same anymore. The seeds of curiosity, jealousy, and competition had been planted. And in Marembo, once seeds take root, they always grow into something powerful. The village of Marembo seemed to shimmer under the late morning sun, golden fields stretching as far as the eye could see. Yet beneath the warm light, a subtle unease was creeping through the alleys and clay homes. Money, once a distant dream, had begun to stir hidden desires, rivalries, and envy among the villagers. In the open courtyard near the central well, Mama Jalea stood with a basket of yams, watching her neighbor's son display a shiny new coin he had received from a distant relative. "See that?" she whispered to her friend, Mama Temi. "He brags as if gold fell from the sky into his hands." Mama Temi shook her head. "Ah, and yet it is the same gold that can break hearts. When wealth speaks, respect for tradition listens no more." Nearby, Keto laughed loudly, tossing coins from his hand into a small cloth bag, showing off his latest earnings from a short job in the city. Young men and women gathered around him, some with admiration, others with eyes narrowed in jealousy. "Look at him," whispered Omoni to Lisha. "He thinks he owns the world with that small bag of coins." Lisha frowned, her heart heavy. "It is not the coins he owns, Omoni. It is the pride of those who have nothing but still dream." Across the way, Baraka passed quietly, holding his father's modest savings. He watched Keto's antics, a knot of unease growing in his chest. His father had always spoken of honor, respect, and lineage. But now, the world outside Marembo had brought whispers that money could override all that. Baraka's father, Baba Tembo, approached him slowly. "Son," he said, his voice low but steady, "do you see how coins can twist hearts? Remember, a man who worships silver forgets the gold of his ancestors." Baraka nodded, biting back the questions that crowded his mind. "But Baba, how do we protect our homes, our ways, when even neighbors start counting who has more?" Baba Tembo's gaze drifted toward the distant concrete houses sprouting like foreign seeds. We cannot stop the wind, Baraka, but we can stand firm like the old trees. Some storms pass, others leave marks. Meanwhile, a group of young women whispered near the clay fence, their voices laced with curiosity and envy. "Did you see Mama Julia's daughter?" one asked. "She wears cloth from the city, and now people say she is above us." Another replied, "It is not the cloth, sister. It is the coin sewn into pride. Soon, no one will remember respect or elders, only who has more." Even the elders noticed the tension. Elder Omoni called for a quiet council, gathering the older women and men beneath the shade of the baobab tree. "This money," he said slowly, "is like fire in dry grass. It warms some, it burns others. We must guide our children before the fire spreads beyond the village." But even as he spoke, Keto's laughter echoed from the village center, and the glint of coins reflected in the sun, drawing eyes and hearts away from the paths of wisdom. Omoni sighed, watching the subtle division grow. Families silently comparing gifts, children learning to value silver over tradition, and friendships strained by the weight of envy. She whispered to herself, "The world is calling, yet our souls are tied to the ancestors. How long can a village survive when hearts are divided by gold?" As the day waned, Marembo's golden field seemed almost to shimmer with tension. Every coin tossed, every whisper of wealth, every secret longing for more added invisible threads to the web of rivalry forming across the village. And though the elders spoke of unity and heritage, the quiet currents of greed and desire were already moving through the people, promising trials that would challenge every bond and test every lesson passed down through generations. The ancestors watched in silence. Their spirits knew that soon, Marembo would face choices that could either strengthen its roots or scatter them to the winds.